All right, hi there. We're Team 13 and we got observational learning. I'm Guillermo. All
I'm Alicia.
And I'm Nikki.
right, next slide. So what is observational learning? So observational learning refers to the development of new skills or behaviors by observing another person or individual. This other person that's being observed is usually called the model, and they're what's considered the source of the new behaviors that other person is learning. So the study that I did my assignment on is Hall et al. In 2009. In this study, they pretty much observed athletes from different team sports and individual sports, and they wanted to see if athletes, if they used imagery and observational learning during competition or practice, and how those two skills affected their confidence in practice or in competition. So what they did is they took 345 athletes. Pretty much they gave them surveys asking about what type of imageries they use during competition and practice, and pretty much asked them like, how it affects their confidence and when they use them most, and what situations they find that it helps them best. So types of imagery. Oh wait, go back. So the types of imagery they use were cognitive specific imagery, which is when athletes picture themselves performing a skill, like for volleyball, either serving, or basketball, either shooting a hoop. Cognitive general imagery, which involves imagining overall strategies or plays. Think of it like football. Motivational specific imagery, which is imagining reaching a personal goal, like winning a race. Motivational general arousal imagery, which helps manage energy, nerves, and excitement before actually competing. And motivational general mastery imagery, which is about picturing yourself being confident, focused, and in control. So they wanted to know if which type of these imageries were used the most and which ones of these helped them feel more confident. And what they found is that athletes typically used all of these imageries in their practice and competition. Um, but the biggest increase in their confidence came from motivational imagery, which is especially motivational general mastery imagery, which, like I mentioned, is the pretty much picturing yourself like completing the goal, confident, focused, and in control. But yeah, they also found that observational learning or watching others learn was used more in practice than in competition. So really, athletes were using observational learning in practice to develop skills, and they were using imagery during competition to picture themselves actually succeeding at those skills. This study actually shows that imagery, especially motivational general mastery imagery, plays a key role in building sport confidence, and observational learning is mostly used in practice. The limits of the study were pretty much that it relied on self-report data, so it's not really based on like actual evidence. It's pretty much just self-reported data from athletes. Yeah.
The article that I chose is titled Workplace Learning and Information Exchange Among Gig Workers, Crowdsourcing and the Social Media Advantage. And I got this article from the Journal of Workplace Learning. The authors are Primsiri Arunsri and Oliver Stephen Kroko. The key points of this study were that this article explored how gig workers participate in information sharing and how this can promote workplace learning through social media channels. This article uses methods of crowdsourcing through a Facebook group made specifically for these type of workers to share work experience and ask work-related questions. Some findings of this study were that this study included data from 338 Facebook posts and 3,022 comments from a Facebook group that consisted of around 40,000 members from Thailand. These posts highlighted the challenges gig workers face as well as their accomplishments and personal experiences on the job. This study shows how observational learning can be expressed in the workplace as well as through social media platforms. Experienced gig workers shared their experience and tips about the job, while new gig workers used the platform as a type of work training because they lacked official work training and used this group to fill this need for workplace information.
Okay. My study was on familiar peers and how it improved students' behaviors. attention and performance when learning with video lectures. So the study was conducted by the International Journal of Educational Technology and Higher Education, and they looked at whether learning with a peer can improve college students' learning from short online lectures. The study was conducted entirely online, and the goal of the study was to see if doing a video lecture with a fellow peer would improve attention, cognitive, and learning processing. They simply they simply learned while a peer was on screen. They did not interact at all. And next slide. In total, there was 87 college students that participated in this study. They were randomly assigned to either work alone, work with a familiar peer, or work with an unfamiliar peer. During this study, basically, they were all doing the same video lecture. They were not interacting with the other person. The other person was just simply on screen, and the researchers just wanted to see if having someone around interacting or not would change the way they process learning. So everyone was given the same thing, and the only difference was if you knew the person or not. The video was about infectious diseases, and they measured the students' eye movements, their behavior patterns while watching the video, and the motivation afterwards. And then they measured the test scores from the information processed. The results showed that the students who learned with a familiar peer had the highest motivation and used more active learning behaviors. These students tended to pause and go back a lot, and double check their information. Peer presence often improved transfer learning. The familiar peer groups also remembered more information. However, having a peer did not change the attention and cognitive load. So there were some limitations for this study because it was entirely conducted of college students. So some people in the article were saying that maybe it should be more generalized, like for students in high school or other forms of education. And the size was also pretty small. There was only 87, so it wasn't really generalizable for that as well. And the term familiar peer was also hard to define. So some of these people were simply like in the same class. Yes, they were in the same class, but they weren't necessarily peers, so it was hard to define that. Finally, the author suggested that future studies should include more diverse samples at different schools and use more reliable measures. All right, that's it for our articles. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.